Hi, this is Fran with Stampendous, and this is week 130 of our fabulous Friday Fun watercolor video series. And we hope you're supporting your local rubber stamp store, and that would be where you might see this fun model board for all of the videos that we're featuring here in October. So you can see a lot of fun slim cards that we're doing, and follow along and learn some new watercolor techniques. I'm featuring the Winged Cup clear stamp set, and it has the cup and the wonderful birds and butterflies. So we're going to do a couple of variations of our little birds sitting on the cups, and this one is 3 3/4 square, and you can see how it fits nicely on an A2 card. And we'll do another one that is 3 3/4 by 5 to make the full use of the A2 size format. So one quick tip here, when you have a clear stamp like this with a big open area, we've reinforced it so that it would be as steady as can be, but you want to make sure that you get it onto your block without distortion so that it gives you a nice little mug or cup here. And so we'll do some stamping, and I've pre-made some of my masks on sticky notes, making sure I had the sticky on an area that doesn't get cut away. And so we will just do this fast forward, but you can see the progression. And I'll mention that I took some scrap paper just to play around with things to see what would fit within a given area. And that may be helpful to you to make a plan before you do your watercolor. But if you're following exactly what I've done, you'll see exactly where to start and how it goes. This one is quite easy because of the simple color palette, and it might be too busy if you had all different colors, but it was kind of nice just to go this approach. So let's start with our cherry yellow mug or cup here. Oh, I forgot, you can see the one other design here. We made it as a separate piece, our little curlicue, but that can be a fun little pattern on the mug if you want it to be. We'll make sure that gets a chance to dry. Okay, so we'll start with our yellows up here, and if these are little daisies, it really is quick and easy to get some nice yellows going here. And then I think they always looks nice to be enhanced with a little bit of the warmer gamboge color. For our cup, if we want it to look a little bit three-dimensional, I'm enhancing the color on the sides and maybe on the handle. And then we'll go back in with our lighter yellow. And then I'm going to lighten it through here as I darkened it over here. And then just a little bit here on the handle. Okay, and then for our blues, I want a nice phthalo blue. I'll do just the little hints of blue to start with, so I'll get even more water on my brush here, and just a little touch, and don't touch the yellow if it's still wet. Actually, a little bit of the marine blue with the phthalo blue gives you just a little bit different shade of. Okay, and then we need a shadow down here, or it looks like we have a flying cup. I have an artist friend from college days who does ceramics, Randy, and his business name is Flying Cup. And that's what it looks like, unless we anchor this here. Okay, very simple, just by the limited color palette. So now let's do more colors on this one. I'm thinking here, what shall I do on this one? You know, I think I'm going to take a looser approach with this and start with a whole bunch of light blues. And again, I'll just kind of doing interesting little brush strokes and dabs of color. It's kind of fun. Okay, and just had an idea that I wanted to try. There might be any number of small flowers that we could put a pattern on the teacup. This is the smallest one in this set, but I'm going to borrow a flower from a different set. I wasn't planning to do this, or I might have set up a mask ahead of time, but I think I can make it work here just with some sticky notes. I'm going to improvise here just to show you. I don't think I've ever done a mask. I'll call it a negative mask. And I did it on the sticky. Well, I'm cutting away most of the sticky actually. See, a fun new trick today. Let's see if I want to keep the sticky edge. And actually this is easier cutaway than if I had a great big sticky note, and then I would have needed an X-Acto knife or something to cut it in one shape. So doing it in two actually was easier, and I did as much overlap as I could. And it probably doesn't matter, but I'll show you since I made that top edge straight. That's easy enough to do. And I realized I should make my outside pieces as big as I could to cover a larger stamp in case we use the big flower. So I happen to have this beautiful large and small blossoms from the On My Mind set. So let's use these just to show that we can now stamp a very interesting pattern here. Kind of like it going off the edge. And we'll just stamp. I might have taken that like edge pattern and not stamped it at all. Oh, let's leave it like that. Okay, we're making it up as we go along here, as you can tell. Okay, and now for the reveal of our beautiful teacup pattern. Oh yeah, that's fun. Okay, so now we've got to decide what other colors we're doing here. I know my little ladybug's going to be red, so I'll start with that. Our rose. So with the little polka dots, the easiest thing will be to color all of it red and then come back and add black. Since I'm not sure where else I want red, I think I'm going to do some lavenders on my mug. And it just occurred to me that if I leave those blossoms white, that might be a really pretty look. I'd like to do some browns on my little bird. So I'm going to do a light yellow on his tummy. Most people will do butterflies in symmetrical patterning and colors, but artists don't have to, so I just made mine kind of as it happened there. Let's see, next I think I'll mix some rose and scarlet to get a pretty coral color. That's fun. And we'll see, this over blue may come out a bit different, but we'll try. Tempted to lighten it, but it will dry a bit lighter. I just remembered an experience when I was little. That there was a butterfly that, I don't know if it was injured or what, but it landed on my hand and stayed there, and I was able to observe it. And I was surprised that the wing pattern on the outside was different from the wing pattern on the underside. And I was able to study it, and it was just amazing to see and look at one up close. So I'll give you the freedom to paint your butterflies however you like. And this is looking kind of fun. We've got a variety of colors, and I'm tempted to do just a little bit of color here on maybe my plum blossoms, now that the lavender is dry, to add just a little touch of yellow. And that's a complementary color, but as long as the one is dry, that works pretty good. And let's see, our little ladybug needs a little bit more black on a rather dry brush. So if the red is dry and you want to come back in, it's easiest to do black over the red. Do just a little shadow on their wings. Next, we're going to use our Hands Hold clear stamp with the balloons, and I'm going to do this long, thin, slimline card. So let me give you a couple of tips about the proportions of this slimline. People are having a lot of fun with this new format these days, and if you start from your business envelopes, you can see here I've got two different sizes. So start with perhaps what size business envelope you have available that you're going to use. But I've found that I can make my preferred sizes is to make a card that's 4 by 8.5, and this makes good use of my 8.5 11 paper. And then if I'm going to do a panel that can be framed by that size card, then I would cut it to 3 3/4 by 8 1/4. And sometimes with a double frame, you would cut it 1/4 inch yet smaller again. but I'm going to go with this size. And to show you with my watercolor paper that's 9 by 12, I can very easily get 3 slimline cards out of a full sheet. If I were doing paintings, I could do 3 little 4 by 9 paintings and use the full entire sheet and maybe have an edge that could get matted or something. But for cards, this size I think is ideal. So again, I kind of started by playing around with scrap paper to see how the stamps would work, and I designed them to give you a lot of flexibility. And it worked pretty good the way I had hoped. So let me show you. Okay, so we've got a left and a right hand, and I would suggest you start with that. And you can put the hands together and touching if you like, but it's also easy and fun to look like the balloons are being handed off to someone. And since I missed an edge, I could turn it over and start again, but I'm just going to touch it up. And keep on going. So this little stamp looks a bit strange in the package, but it works the way I had hoped, that you can stamp it going up and you can stamp it down below. Just kind of line it up. No masking required. And the balloons, we could do some masking, but we're going to assume that they are translucent so you can see the overlap. So now the idea is you've been given 3 little stems and you stamp it to where it connects it to the stems, and the overlap is okay. Okay, and then I'm going to stamp a couple more, and by stamping going off the top, it really gives you the sense that the balloons are just floating away. So a stamp with just a thin line is pretty tricky and doesn't stamp very well. So you're on your own to create some additional balloon lines here. So if you want to make sure you're happy with it, try a pencil line first and then come in with your fine line pen. Okay. And if you don't want the pencil lines to show, now's the time to carefully erase them without scrubbing too much at the paper. You could leave the sky entirely white, but if you'll see here, doing a blue in between the most important part of your design, I think is a very interesting way of pulling your eye in and giving you a wonderful illusion of sky without the burden of painting all the way around the whole thing, because our focus is going to be the balloons, not the sky. So I want a nice wet brush with a medium blue here, because we want to just do it in one pass if we can. So think puffy clouds. So you're doing kind of the inverted shapes here, and make this line look like puffy clouds. Maybe go over twice where it comes right up to the stamped line. It tends to pull away a little bit. Okay, and then we'll continue it out. I think design-wise, having a composition that kind of goes across the page here works quite well, and we'll just do a little bit more down here. Okay, that's also helping our whole design of this kind of bring your eye up to where it looks like our balloons are just floating away off the top. Just a little bit more here. Okay, simple sky. And all your beautiful puffy clouds are the negative space, and that's pretty easy. Okay, so while that area is drying, I can do my yellow balloons up here at the top. Make sure my brush is nice and clean. To make my balloon look sort of rounded, I've created some little shadow lines over here, and this would be where the darkest part of the balloon is, and maybe just a little bit of color on this side. I'll get that a little bit wetter in there. Move it around just a little bit. And the wetter your brush, the more your shading is all going to go kind of flat anyway, but I'm going to lift away a little bit. And now I'm going to do the same on the balloon here. Okay, so we're going to let that dry, but we can now do a magenta balloon over here. So I've got rose with my marine blue. So I know my color is a bit on the dark side here, but we're going to go in with this first, and then we can lift a bit of the color. And now I'm going to get more water on my brush and move around the paint that's there. Tipping my paper will help it kind of dry darker on that side. I'm going to let it dry a little bit more before I lift some color away for a highlight. So let's move over here and do our green. So I'm going to mix a green with yellow and phthalo blue that has a lot more yellow to it, so I get this nice lime color. And in this case there would be some shadowed color from the red balloon. So I'm not going to do the highlight in the same place. But let's go ahead and paint at least a light shade of green in here. And you'll see I intentionally painted the yellow on that side. And we're going to make sure that dries. Okay, so now let's go back and see if we can lift a highlight that won't just fill in again. You can see it moves right back in. So now let's do the challenge of flesh tones, right? So we're primarily going to go over here to our browns, and we're going to take this area. This has got the gamboge, the scarlet, and the phthalo blue. And if I swirl them all together, I'm going to get my browns. But in this case, I want a light tan or darker tan, so it's not getting into much of the blue there. Let's see what we've got. Okay, that's quite nice. This will dry a little bit lighter, however, so we want to have more of a tan. You can just do any skin tone you like here. Let's go with this. And sometimes I like to bring in a little bit of the rose color to warm up the shade of tan or brown. Let's go with that. I can start by an even coating of this color all the way across. But if it's going to be darker, it would be along the bottom edge here. Don't want it to look mottled. And here we don't need the flesh tones to match, since, in fact, let's make them more distinct. Okay, well, you can be pretty proud of yourself if you can mix a lovely skin tone color. Okay. And last we have our rosy red balloon. Actually, it's just as easy to reach. Oh, now look at that. While I was painting hands, my highlight disappeared. So now it's even drier, and I think that might actually stay. I could try to blot it, but that might create a pattern to it. Let's see, I'll carefully kind of move it around. So I'm drying the paper as much as anything there. And then you might decide that's too much. I'm probably going to make it more uneven now by going back. So keep an eye on your highlight while it's drying and see if it looks about right to you. Okay, and now for our rose color. And if we want to do rose and add some of the scarlet, that gives a nice kind of a corally color. So first I'm going to work in between the overlap areas, and then we'll come back and figure out how to make them look the most natural. I'm going to go over the green. Okay, so that gives me a color that's already a mix of the two. Get some darker shades in here. Okay, and then here I left my highlight white, and now with a dry, mostly dry brush, I'm just kind of closing in on it to soften that edge. These bigger balloons give you a little bit more area to play with. Okay, and there you get a really nice highlight. Now this got so wet that it has started to alter my green that wasn't completely dry. So I might have waited a little bit longer before I painted that overlap. And as you can see, patching colors can be trickier than getting it right the first time. But it's good to know some tricks to get it to work the way you want in the end. That came out very fun. Since I've got my heat tool, I'm going to quick dry it. I just realized I should do a little bit of overlap color between the yellow and our red balloon. Okay. So I hope you'll have some fun painting some slimline cards. Take a look at our gallery, and thanks for supporting your local rubber stamp store, and subscribe to these videos so you don't miss any of them as we go forward with some fun new projects next week. We'll see you then. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.